So I was looking at the Tokyo metropolitan area's rail system in Google Maps when something in Chiba to the east caught my eye. It's this little lime green loop that I've never seen or even heard of before in a neighborhood of the city of Sakura called Yukarigaoka. And the name Yukarigaoka directly translates to eucalyptus hills, which is kind of ironic since there is no eucalyptus here at all, it's just a bunch of cherry blossoms. But the name is actually kind of an important detail that I'll talk about later. Now, this line is unique in a lot of ways, firstly being that it's actually not rail at all, but a rubber-tired automated guideway transit system similar to a people mover, like the kind you would see in Miami with the Miami Metro Mover in Brickell. And something to note though is that despite the fact that it's officially called an automated system, it still has a human operating it, which is apparently a quirk of classification. And the second way it's different is the loop style that connects to major rail lines, which is usually something you'd see in theme parks, like not far away in Tokyo Disneyland and Disney Sea in Urayasu with their Disney Resort line. But I also found that the station names in the line were a little funny because of how apt they were, like how Koen Station, which literally translates to Park Station, is just there. And there's Chugakko Station, which literally translates to Junior High School. And shockingly, there's one right next to it. Then there's Joshidai, which means Women's University, and take a wild guess what that station services. The last station actually inside of the loop is Ino Station, which translates to Wild Boar Station, which is just the funniest way to cap off a bunch of literal station names because there's absolutely no wild boars there. Researching why this line exists at all actually led me to this article in the Japan Times, which paints Yukarigaoka as a supposed new town. This is a rabbit hole in of itself, but to simplify that a little bit, in the 1960s, Japan had two civil engineering challenges that it needed to deal with. It had a population explosion and people who were now increasingly moving away from rural areas of Japan into bigger cities like the Tokyo metropolitan area. So the government implemented the concept of a new town, which is essentially a massively master planned suburban community built from scratch, usually centered around pedestrian safety since the government wanted to promote family building and stuff like that in those areas. So new cities started popping up all over, like Tama. And I've actually been to Tama before, and I remember loving it. They have Hello Kitty Land over there. It's called Sanrio Puro Land. But apparently it was a big lesson for civil engineers and the government when planning these cities. And it turns out that the whole family building thing might have worked a little too well because a bunch of young families and young adults rushed into Tama virtually all at once, which seemingly was okay at the time, but as time passed, they realized they had an old new town problem. And, decades after families originally moved in, the children grew up and they moved into central Tokyo, leaving behind an aging population, their parents and grandparents, and that ultimately led to high vacancies. Towns like Tama were originally built with playgrounds and elementary schools, and they're now converting those spaces into elder care facilities and clinics. So how did Yukarigaoka prove that it wouldn't fall into the same fate as Tama in a struggle to keep younger generations? Well, the answer is actually a textile wholesale company all the way in Osaka that figured it out. The People Mover. The whole name of the Yukarigaoka Line is Yamaman Yukarigaoka Line, named after the developers of the town, the Yamaman Corporation. And in the early 60s, Yamaman was still just an Osaka-based fabric wholesaler when one of their major textile trading partners went bankrupt while owing Yamaman a crazy amount of money. And to cover the unpaid debt, Yamaman seized the bankrupt company's collateral asset, which was a huge underdeveloped parcel of mountain land in the Kanagawa prefecture. And now that they were stuck with a whole mountain they didn't know what to do with, Yamaman decided to pivot into land development and real estate to make back some money. And they cleared the mountain. They built a whole 3,300 home suburban development called Shonen Highland in 1965, which was actually a major success, but it had the same issue as Tama. It had an aging population and it made itself obvious much quicker than Tama did. So Yamaman, which was now a real estate company, made sure to never make that mistake again, and in their next new town project in 1971, they would buy a big chunk of land in the Chiba prefecture, but this time, they'd implement a 200 home annual limit. And instead of an initial spike in profit followed by a huge drop, Yamaman guaranteed themselves a predictable, decades-long stream of revenue. They reinvested those steady profits directly into maintaining the town's public spaces, roads, and utilities, and the vision was so bright that Yamaman even envisioned that there would be a train line that serviced the area. The only problem is that when Yamaman asked major railway companies to build an extension to the new development, they all refused. And knowing that a development without easy access to central Tokyo was doomed to fail, they made the unprecedented decision at the time to build, fund, and operate their own transit system where no home would be more than a 10-minute walk from a station. And Japan's mountainous topography and rank as the oldest non-micro country in the world in terms of its citizens' ages meant that any development had to be easy for the elderly to use without any sort of discomfort, so that they didn't avoid commerce and interaction with the rest of the town. So interestingly, the town was built around the people mover system, and it's there on purpose as a way to attract citizens despite being complete overkill for a community of that size. And back in 1982, when the line first opened, it only saw about 63,000 riders total, which averages out to a daily density of just 654 passengers. To put that into perspective, if the National Railway had been running this thing, any density under 4,000 would have been basically a death sentence, and it would have been labeled as unprofitable and immediately scrapped in favor of just running some buses instead. But the thing is, Yamaman doesn't actually care if the Yukarigaoka Line makes money on its own because they see it as a piece of essential infrastructure. It's basically a loss leader that's supposed to keep the town's brand and real estate prices high. If that train wasn't there, the whole 10-minute walk to a station promise would just fall apart and property values would tank and the neighborhood would lose what makes it so special compared to every other commuter town out there. The line connects to the Keisei line at the Yukarigaoka station, which serves as the main artery for getting residents into Tokyo. But actually, this line has one last surprise up its sleeve because somehow its technology is both dated and futuristic at the same time. So in Japan, a lot of transactions are done through what are called IC cards. They're basically rechargeable cards that you can use to pay at stores, restaurants, vending machines, and of course, to get through train stations. Cards like Suica and Pasmo are pretty much standard across Tokyo, but this is the one train line that I've come across that doesn't accept IC cards as payment. You either have to get a paper ticket from a vending machine, or you can opt into their facial recognition system, which just seems so crazy to have on a tiny train line like this. I feel like it would probably be way easier technology-wise to just install some IC card readers, but who am I to judge? And I said the name is an important detail earlier because, as you can probably guess, the name Yukarigaoka, translating to eucalyptus hills, is the reason that there are koalas plastered absolutely everywhere in this town, including on the people mover itself, which is kind of nice. It's kind of like a mascot for the town, and they even have statues of koalas. I also want to go back to this image here just for a second because I really like how the blue sticker at the front with the koala translates to koala number 1, which I can't tell if that's referring to the train itself being koala number 1 or if that's what they're calling the conductor. But I mean, koala number 1 implies the existence of koala number 2. If you want to know anything else, I'm still thoroughly enamored with this little train line, and I'd be happy to research anything for you in the comments.